Good afternoon and welcome to the session on covering multi-vendor interoperable process automation systems. My name is Harry Forbes. I'm an analyst with ARC Advisory Group based in Boston. I'd just like to tell you what the session format is going to be, and just then I'll provide a very, very brief introduction to the topic. The session format will have two presentations by end users, one from a European perspective from a gentleman from BASF who's also representing Namur, and then we'll have a second presentation from ExxonMobil. After those presentations, we'll have time for question and answers, but we'll hold the questions until after the presentations are done, so please take notes of your questions. There will be time, and there will also be a second session in this same room after the break, which will be a complete PowerPoint-free session. There will be time for discussion, question and answer, and it will be a pure panel session. So if you have a question and you don't get a chance to ask it in this session, hold on to it, and perhaps you will be able to ask the question and discuss it in the second session. So I'd like to give just an introduction. What I'd like to do is examine just two questions very quickly. First question is, what is kind of the vision of this open process automation, what I personally think is the most important element? And the second question is why this vision has proven to be so compelling for end users, albeit, as Don pointed out this morning, a small percentage have still signed up for to invest in the initiative. I've got a window there. Is that me? I've got you see what I've got on the lower right? Yeah, I don't have an escape key, do I? There we go. Okay, thank you. Okay. So I would say, and again, this is a bit of opinion, that the key aspect of the vision that's articulated is to eliminate what we would call non-return on investment automation system replacement projects. And in the context, that means projects which are major projects for end user firms. And the second aspect is to do that in a way that maintains the existing levels of safety, security, and financial risk, or at least those levels, and perhaps goes beyond them. And the method envisioned for this is to really create a highly distributed and modular system. And in my opinion, this is going to be much more modular than the typical existing DCS. It will be far more distributable in that the end user will have pretty wide latitude in answering questions about how many eggs to put in one basket in terms of process control and what kind of basket, whether it's a field device or whether it's a on-premise cloud or something else. One thing that certainly has been expressed by ExxonMobil is that the higher capacities of DCS controllers in terms of the number of function blocks that they can process, the number of I/O that they can support, et cetera, haven't really made the replacement cycle easier. In fact, they've made it more complex, because when you're replacing a set of controllers as units, it's much more difficult when they have 500 or 1,000 function blocks to understand all the implications of changing or messing with a controller. So I think we'll have smaller modularity, smaller granularity in terms of both the hardware and also the software, so that the control automation complement for a plant and a unit will be broken up into much more granular segments for ease of maintenance and understanding. So that, in a way, is the vision. I think the central point of it was articulated probably by Don Bartusiak. I'm not sure that's a direct quote, but a couple of years ago at the forum, he says, when we retrofit our installed base, we need to do it in a way that we will never have to do this again, ever. That is kind of the vision. And so my second question is, well, okay, that's the vision. Why is this so compelling for the end user? So I'd like to present kind of a use case for this. This little grid is part of a spreadsheet that was managing DCS retrofits at a process plant. Each line in the grid represents a year. So this is a 6-year program from beginning to end for a single plant with about, roughly a dozen process units. And this end user is now probably about a third to a half done with this program. These were very old DCS installations mostly, but probably about the same vintage as the ones that ExxonMobil is replacing in general. They broke the process up into 25 separate projects for a number of reasons, but in terms of size of project, manageability, and ability to get the project installed and commissioned in a short window of time. Scheduled along with their other activities, including operation and turnarounds. And each one of those 25 projects requires process engineers, it requires automation design, it requires some EPC services, some installation, some startup, some commissioning, operator training, integration. And that's just the background music that these people have to deal with for 6 years because, as you know, if unplanned downtime takes priority, this isn't going to help them necessarily to improve the productivity of the plant or the safety. So the impact of this on an organization like that is quite brutal. And so it can lead to people wanting to postpone the activity. It consumes very scarce resources in terms of human talent for management, engineering, procurement, all those kind of project activities. They are complex projects with a very large potential for operational impact, adverse operational impact. They require often re-engineering of obsolete technologies or unsupported technologies that may be poorly documented, may be very old. And so that presents another source of risk in terms of getting the project commissioned. And again, as I mentioned, very few business improvements and 6 years of background effort to get this infrastructure retrofitted. The second aspect was to do this in ways that, of the vision, was to do it in ways that safety, security, and risk stay at the existing levels or improve. So the vision includes replacing that kind of project where there are hundreds or thousands of I/O points in a project and there's dozens of projects with a more maintenance-oriented activity on a much smaller granularity of chunk of automation, be it hardware, software, or both. It needs to reduce the impact of system or subsystem failures, and it needs to enable the technical staff of the plant in that when someone is brought on board the plant, there's an issue in terms of how soon they can produce, how soon they can be productive, how much technology they have to learn before they can really become a fully contributing member of the team. And that's an issue for a lot of operating facilities. Finally, the final reason I would say that end users find the vision compelling is the huge gaps between the technology of consumer electronics and IT versus the installed base of automation systems. And people have gone into detail in terms of how this makes the occupation less attractive to a younger workforce, which needs to come in and replace the older workforce. And it brings really to the forefront the end user dissatisfaction, if you will, with the status quo, which is a 15, 20, or 25, or even 30-year replacement cycle for the products. So when you're looking at these kind of consumer electronic technologies that show the power and the capability of modern software, it does increase really the dissatisfaction with the status quo. And another point I would make is that, especially in the IT realm, the impact of open source software has been absolutely gigantic, But if we look at the level of automation at which this program is aimed, the impact so far has been pretty much zero. So I think, and those are not an end user words, but I think that's kind of what the end users are saying in some ways. Why can't our automation systems take on at least some of the aspects of consumer electronics and IT? So that, in a nutshell, is my opinion of what the vision consists of primarily, and why end users find it compelling.